You wake up with the same resolve. Today, you'll be better, kinder, bolder. You'll speak your truth. You'll chase what lights you up. But by noon, something shifts. A snide comment slips out. You shrink in the meeting. You scroll instead of creating. You pick the fight you swore you'd avoid. And later, you wonder, who was that? Not the you planned to be. That was your shadow. The hidden part of you that doesn't want to be seen. But it's running the show. The part that holds your anger, your fear, your jealousy, your desire for control, your shame. You don't post about it. You don't show it on first dates. But it's there, silently steering your choices. This video isn't about demonizing that part. It's about meeting it. Understanding that your shadow self isn't your enemy. It's the collection of traits, fears, and impulses you've buried because they felt too dark, too weak, too wrong. And while you ignore it, it controls you from the basement of your mind. Once you bring light to the shadow, it stops pulling strings. It becomes a guide. Let's start with what the shadow is. In psychology, especially Jungian thought, the shadow is everything you reject about yourself. The anger you call unspiritual. The jealousy you hide behind smiles. The laziness you beat yourself up for. The selfishness you pretend doesn't exist. These aren't just flaws. They're exiles. Parts of you that learned early. If I show up, I'll be punished, shamed, abandoned. As a child, you adapted. If your family valued nice over honest, you buried your rage. If vulnerability was weakness, you locked away your neediness. If ambition looked greedy, you dimmed your drive. Maybe you heard, "Don't be so dramatic. Stop crying, or I'll give you something to cry about." Who do you think you are? Those words didn't just hurt. They sculpted your shadow. Society reinforced it. Be productive, not lazy. Be strong, not sensitive. Be perfect, not human. So you built a persona, the mask you show the world. Bright, capable, together. The one that says, "I'm fine," even when you're not. The one that gets praise. But the shadow grew in the dark, feeding on what you denied. It remembers everything you disowned. Now, as an adult, that shadow doesn't stay quiet. It leaks out. In projections, you hate in others what you fear in yourself. The coworker who's too aggressive, that's your buried assertiveness. The friend who's so needy, that's your unspoken longing for connection. The influencer who's full of themselves, that might be your exiled confidence. Projection is the shadow's favorite trick. It points fingers so you don't look inward. It also shows in moods. The sudden irritability when you're actually scared. The numbness when you're overwhelmed. The procrastination when you're terrified of your own potential. The self-sabotage we talked about before. Picking fights, quitting early, numbing out. That's not you being bad. That's the shadow demanding attention. It says, "If you won't acknowledge me, I'll make sure you feel me." And in dreams, the shadow loves the night. Recurring nightmares of being chased. That's the fear you run from when awake. Dreams of power or revenge. That's the strength and anger you suppress. Jung called dreams the royal road to the unconscious. Your shadow whispers there, trying to get through. Ignore it, and the messages get louder in your waking life, often through crisis. The danger is denial. If you pretend the shadow doesn't exist, it controls you more. It becomes the critic in your head. You're not good enough. They'll leave if they see the real you. Don't try, you'll fail. That inner voice isn't wisdom. It's the shadow, distorted by years of rejection. It keeps you small to stay safe. But safety in hiding is just another cage. A beautiful prison with invisible bars. There's also the collective shadow. Not just personal, but cultural. The parts of humanity we all deny. Greed, violence, vulnerability, grief. We project them onto others. The villains in the news, the bad people out there. Whole groups get labeled as monsters so we don't face the same seeds in ourselves. But when you own your shadow, you see it everywhere. Not to judge, but to understand. Your personal shadow connects to the bigger one. Healing one helps heal the world. So how does the shadow form, really? Trauma plays a role, like we explored before. If you were shamed for crying, your sadness goes underground. If anger meant danger, it festers. If being visible brought criticism, you disappear into perfectionism. Childhood patterns teach you what's acceptable. The persona gets the love, the shadow gets the silence. Over time, the split deepens. You become a stranger to half of yourself. Attachment wounds amplify it. If caregivers were inconsistent, you might bury your needs to avoid rejection. the shadow becomes the clingy part you hate, the part that wants reassurance. Or if they were controlling, your rebellion goes hidden, erupting as passive aggression or quiet sabotage. The shadow isn't born bad. It's born from survival. But survival strategies expire. Now they just limit you. In relationships, the shadow is a master saboteur. You attract partners who mirror your unowned parts. The narcissist you date? They reflect your buried entitlement and need to be seen. The victim you rescue? That's your own helplessness calling. Until you integrate the shadow, relationships become shadow theaters. Endless reenactments of old wounds. With new actors, same script. Think of the person who always ends up with partners who can't commit. On the surface, they say, "I just want stability." But their shadow may fear true intimacy, because being fully seen once meant hurt. So they are drawn, again and again, to what confirms the old wound. I am not chosen. The shadow chooses what feels familiar, not what feels good. At work, it shows as imposter syndrome. The success you crave terrifies the shadow. If I shine, they'll see the flaws. So it whispers doubts, makes you overwork to prove worth, or quit right before things get big. You might sabotage promotions, miss deadlines, or hide behind perfectionism, never finishing, so you never risk being judged. The shadow prefers the known pain of mediocrity over the unknown of fulfillment. Even spiritually, the shadow lurks. The enlightened persona seeks peace, but ignores the rage beneath. You meditate on love while secretly judging the world. You talk about forgiveness while never forgiving yourself. True spirituality integrates the shadow. Jung said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." Light without shadow is just a pretty lie. So what happens when you ignore it for years? The shadow grows stronger. It manifests as addiction, depression, chronic exhaustion, the body screaming what the mind won't hear. Or as evil outbursts, road rage, betrayals, cruelty you can't explain. You snap and think, "That wasn't me." But it was. It was the part of you you've refused to meet. That's not possession. That's the shadow taking the wheel because you left it in the trunk. But here's the hope. The shadow isn't there to destroy you. It holds gifts. The anger you buried? It's your boundary setter and your sense of justice. The laziness? Your call to rest, to not base your worth solely on productivity. The selfishness? Your right to prioritize yourself and stop bleeding for everyone else. Integrate it, and these become allies. The persona alone is one-dimensional. With shadow, you're whole, complex, real. So how do you meet your shadow without getting lost in it? Step 1, awareness. Notice projections. When you judge someone harshly, ask, "What part of me is this?" Not as blame, but as curiosity. Journal it. I hate their arrogance. Where do I fear owning my own confidence? I hate their neediness. Where do I secretly long to be held? The question alone starts the dialogue. Step 2, feel it without judgment. Sit with the discomfort, the jealousy, the fear, the rage, the envy. Instead of instantly acting it out or pushing it away, pause. Name it gently. Jealousy is here. Rage is here. Don't analyze yet. Just witness. This is here. It's part of me. Compassion for the shadow is key. It's not bad. It's wounded. Treat it like a scared child, not a monster. Step 3, express it safely. Art, writing, voice notes, therapy. Draw the shadow. Write its story. I am the part of you that. Finish that sentence again and again. In dreams, ask it questions before sleep. What do you need me to see? Active imagination, as Jung called it, lets the shadow speak. You might be surprised. It's not out to get you. It's out to be seen, to be included. Step 4, integrate through action. Where the shadow pulls you down, let it guide you up. If it's fear of failure, take a small, low-risk step towards something you care about. Hit publish on something imperfect. If it's buried anger, set one clear boundary this week. Say, "No, I can't do that," without over-explaining. Small acts of embodiment. The shadow doesn't want control. It wants inclusion. It wants you to say, "You can come with me." Step 5, bring it into relationship. Tell someone safe about your shadow patterns. I notice I get jealous when, or I shut down when I feel small. Saying it out loud breaks the spell of secrecy. The shadow feeds on silence. When you bring it into connection, shame loosens. You realize you're not the only one. Everyone has a version of this. Therapy helps here. Shadow work is deep. A guide can hold space for what feels overwhelming. They can spot projections you can't see. Books like Owning Your Own Shadow by Robert A. Johnson or Jung's work are maps. Somatic or trauma-informed therapy can connect shadow work to your body, not just your mind. But remember, integration isn't erasure. It's balance. The shadow stays, but as partner, not puppet master. As you do this, life shifts subtly at first. You start catching yourself mid-pattern. The text you would have sent in anger becomes a note in your journal. The argument you would have started becomes a boundary instead. Projections fade. You see others more clearly, less as threats or villains. Relationships deepen. You attract wholeness, not just mirrors of pain. Creativity flows from the depths you used to avoid. The shadow self isn't controlling you anymore. You're conscious of it. You've met its eyes. And in that consciousness lies freedom. Not perfection, but authenticity. The full spectrum, light and dark, strength and vulnerability, tenderness and power. That's where real power lives. Not in pretending to be only light, but in knowing you can walk through your own darkness and stay. If this stirred something in you, it's because your shadow recognizes itself. The part you've hidden, now calling home. Maybe you felt a sting at certain examples. The partner you chose. The fight you started. The thing you said you'd never do, and did. That's not proof you're broken. It's proof there's more of you waiting to be known. You're not broken for having a shadow. You're human, and humans are meant to be whole. The world doesn't need another perfect persona. It needs people who know their darkness and choose, again and again, not to let it rule unconsciously. Subscribe if you want more on integrating the hidden self. Trauma, shadow, spiritual psychology, nervous system healing. Like if this named the unseen force in your life. Share with someone who feels pulled by invisible strings. They might not know it's their shadow yet. You are not controlled. You are awakening. One shadow at a time. One honest look inward at a time. And that, quietly, is how your shadow stops being a prison and becomes your deepest source of power.